Ever find your eyes absolutely glued to your fingers when you play bass? Like if you ever stopped looking at what you're playing, you'd fall apart? If that's you, then check this lesson out. Hi, I'm Luke from Become a Bassist, and in this lesson, you're going to learn how to tear your eyes away from your fretboard so you can actually make some music, actually start having some fun with some other people when you play, instead of being trapped in your own little world. Welcome to Become a Bassist, where it's all about insanely practical, no BS bass lessons designed to get you playing better bass, having more fun, and becoming the best bassist you can be. And today I'm answering a question sent in by a Become a Bassist email subscriber named Quentin. And he writes, "Hello Luke, I was wondering how you would suggest learning to play without looking at the fretboard. Been playing bass for a while now, but cannot fathom how to play without looking at the fretboard. Kind regards, Quentin." This is a great question, and it happens to a lot of, beginner-ish bass players. They start off, they're super keen, which is awesome, but the only way they feel like they can play is if their eyes are, glued to that fretboard, glued to their fingers. This is fine if you're only ever playing with recordings or playing by yourself or with play-alongs, backing tracks, all that kind of thing. But what happens when you start playing with other people and you have to learn to communicate through eye contact? Or what if you need to learn to read music? That's another story as well, right? You can't look at the music as well as your fretboard, right? Plus, I think probably the only bass player that can pull off only ever looking at his fretboard would be someone like John Mule, right? So how do you do it? How do you peel your eyes, peel your gaze away from the fingers and the fretboard? Well, I've got a 3-step method that'll have you playing bass blindfolded if you need to. Step 1, the very first step, is to get really good at playing just about any bass line, even if it's very, very simple. In fact, at the beginning, simple is absolutely going to be better. Even just a bread and butter 8th note line is going to work really well. Think something like U2's With or Without You. Yeah, super simple, but that's totally fine. The actual bass line you choose to do this with doesn't really matter as long as you pick something and get super comfortable with it, with how it sounds, with how it feels under your fingers. And if you want some inspiration for beginner-friendly bass lines to learn though, check out any of my beginner bass lines guaranteed to impress videos. There's tons of bass lines in there to sink your teeth into and, get used to not watching your fingers. So step 1, you've learned your super simple bass line, right? Nothing to it, bread and butter, 8th notes, if that's what you're going for, right? Step 2 is to gradually wean yourself off looking at the fretboard. Don't aim to go from, having to look at your fingers the whole time to never looking at them at all with no steps in between. That's just a recipe for frustration. What you might do, you might start with looking at the fretboard 100% of the time and then try and, reduce it to 80% of the time. So try and find the places where you can safely look away from the fretboard and still have all the notes under your fingers. For example, if you were using this bass line with or without you, and you're playing it like this, you might realize that if you play the final notes in the bass line, this G right here, 3rd fret on the E string with your index finger, if you're right down there, then the next note you play to start the kind of cycle over again is a D, the 5th fret on the A string. And if you're playing with the index finger right here, you're right in position. You could play it with the pinky or the 3rd finger, and you don't have to move your hand at all. You don't have to worry about, getting tripped up. You can just play this G, and without looking, go to the next note. So practice that. Play the bass line while looking at your fingers. Then when you get to the point in the bass line that you've kind of identified as being ripe for this exercise, either, close your eyes or look away, so you're forced to do it without looking. Yeah, so you might go looking at the fingers, right here, look away, close the eyes. Yeah, and then you obviously we're right in position, so this is a pretty easy one. And then you start the cycle over again, just like that, yeah? The obvious next step, step 3, is to gradually tear your eyes away more by more, little by little, yeah? You might realize that if you start on this D right here, then the A below it is in the same position and you can just play it without watching. Super easy, right? All you have to worry about is the change of strings because there is no change of fret. 5th fret on the A, 5th fret on the E. You might also realize that if you play the first 2 notes with your index finger right there, then your first 3 notes are actually right in position and you can practice them, playing them without looking because that B is right there. Although if you do that, then you have to make this shift here. from this B to this G. It gets a little bit more, a little bit trickier. So with shifts though, the secret is in building up your muscle memory for them to become second nature. So if you were in this position, you could just focus on that position shift. You'd start on that B with the pinky or maybe your third finger. And you'd practice. First of all, you start off by watching and then gradually try and tear your eyes away a little bit. Building that muscle memory, so whenever you have to make a shift of like that size, you're going to have to do it, you're going to be able to do it rather, without thinking about it too hard. You might also find that your habit is to overshoot. You might go too far. You might go, oh, gone down too far there, gone down to that F sharp, maybe even that F right there if you're not looking. You might undershoot and end up on, the G sharp or the A. Oh, that's not what you want either, right there, yeah? If that were the case, then you just make a mental note. Next time you try it and go a little bit further than you think you need to, and hopefully land on the, the right place. And you should be able to nail it with practice. Just making little adjustments until you can fairly reliably go from where you are to where you need to be without relying on your eyes too much. Now, this might feel a bit awkward at the start, but the more you do it and the more mistakes you make, the better you'll get at it. Every mistake, it's an opportunity to learn. So try and trust your hands, trust your fingers, trust your ears, and you'll gradually stop relying so much on your eyes. Remember, you're building the muscle memory every time you do this, so you can afford to rely on your eyes less and less over time. Sometimes you do have to look at what you're playing though, and you probably should. If you're doing some big fill way up high on the neck and you have to jump straight back down and land on a note really strong, then you may need to actually use your eyes just to make sure that things go nice and smooth. So if you decided to put in an egregious, unwarranted fill in this song way up high, you need to look up to kind of get there, and probably on the way back down as well, just to make sure nothing bad happens. So you might do something like this. Might go, what was that? So from that like high B up there, down to that D, you're probably going to need to look at those for the massive big shift there. And by the way, I wouldn't ever recommend you do that in a song like this. It's a terrible idea. Like I said though, you should probably look at your bass for those important things like really big jumps like that. But over time, you'll get used to not using your eyes as much when you're playing normal bass lines. Like I said, you'll start to rely on your muscle memory, on your ears, on your fingers, and everything else but your eyes. Now, having your eyes glued to the bass is a problem that can plague more beginning bass players. And it can be hard for beginners to know exactly what to do to actually improve. Should you learn songs or scales? And should you learn by tabs or sheet music, or do it all by ear? Do you need to worry about gear or how to play with a drummer? There's millions of questions and rabbit holes that beginners can fall down. But to make things easy for a beginner, if you're a beginner yourself, I've curated my absolute best set of lessons for beginning bass players and put them into my Become a Bassist starter pack, and I want to give it to you today totally free. Just click here, fill out the form on that page, and I'll send you the 9-lesson pack, and you'll get the step-by-step guide you can use to take your playing to the next level. So I'll see you in there.